Hi, in this tutorial I want to go over one of the more advanced features in Solidworks. It's called the boundary feature. So we're going to go and create a new part. And so to start off with this boundary boss feature, I'm going to have to create a couple of sketches. Now, as we saw with some of the other features, it's often a little bit simpler. You may only need to create one 2D shape or one 2D shape and a center line to revolve around. But when it comes to the boundary base, it's a little bit more complicated. So let's get started. I'm going to start a sketch here on the right plane. So click on that and hit sketch. And from here, I'm going to go ahead and create a line, always on the origin to start. I'm going to come out and I'm going to switch to inches and pounds on the bottom right here. And I'm going to set this distance to be, let's say, 4.5 inches. Okay, now we have that set. From here, I'm going to make this a construction line for now. And I'm going to create another sketch now on the front plane, which, as you could see, intersects the origin and therefore intersects our construction line here. So I'm going to start a sketch and I'm going to create a circle. I'm going to make that circle say 2 inches for now. We can always change it. So that's going to be 2 inches in diameter. And from here, I'm going to create a second profile. So that profile is going to be here on this point. So to do that, I'm going to have to create another plane that comes off of the first one. So let's come up here, create a plane. So I clicked on, let me show that again. I'm going to come up here, reference geometry. It's under the features tab. I'm going to click on it, click on plane, and I'm going to click here on the plus sign and select the front plane. And I'm going to select this point as my second reference. So I'm hoping everyone watching the video is pretty comfortable with what I've done so far. If you're not, please refer to the previous videos. What we're going to be doing in this video is certainly more advanced than what we've done in the past. We've gone over a lot of the simpler features that are used more day to day. This is a little bit more esoteric. It's a little bit more advanced. So with that being said, we're going to continue from here. So I'm going to hit OK. Now my plane is created. And it's created here on this point, which is based off this line and the line distance. So from here, I'm going to create a sketch on this plane. And I'm going to make it a circle as well. So I'm going to make that 2 inches in diameter. I'm going to come up here, smart dimension, pull out a dimension. Okay, great. So our first circle here is 2 inches and our second one is 2 inches. So we have two circles, same diameter. And now I'm going to add a few more profiles. So I'm going to create a, right here, on the right profile, I'm going to create a sketch. I'm going to come up here and I'm going to just drop an arc. And I'm going to click on this point of the arc and the circle. And I'm going to come down here and I'm going to select this relation. It's called pierce. So what that's going to do is it's going to make the point and the circle coincident with each other. So from here, I can create another arc if I want to. And you're going to see what we're building here in just a minute. I want to make these two tangent, so that way they're, if they're tangent with each other, then they're continuous. So here on the bottom, I want to make a line here and make it construction. And if I select this line and this line, I can make them tangent to each other, which is what we want. So I know I'm going a little bit faster. Just like I mentioned before, if you'd like to brush up on sketches, I believe lesson 3 here in the series is a great video to watch. I know I'm kind of breezing through this. So yeah, I definitely recommend going over lesson 3 if you don't feel comfortable with creating what I just did here, these tangents and the straight line. All right, so I'm going to continue here. I'm going to make this relation for now. I suppose that's going to help us make it horizontal. And I'm going to create a couple more of these arcs, making them tangent along the way. So you could see the relation is automatically added. See that right to the right of my cursor? So that's making it tangent. Okay. And I'm going to create a couple more. And I'm going to create one more. And the last one is going to sit on the final point. So I'm going to make these tangent. Okay. Now I'm going to come here, click on this circle, click on the line, make them tangent, come back, and oops. So I need to add a couple more dimensions here. It's becoming obvious. All these points need to be horizontal to each other. That's the first thing. Second is these need to be tangent. And as you can see, I can kind of control my whole sketch here very easily. So to finish it off, I'm going to just drag these back a little bit. They're horizontal with each other, which is what I want right now. And I'm going to be able to set a dimension here between them. I'm going to say maybe a 1/2 inch. I can try for a 1/2 inch here. So, oops. This is, if I click on this dimension, I could actually just set it from there. That's a little shortcut for you. If you can, what I'm saying is when you create a dimension, if you have a dimension that you want, that you already like, you can click on it and it doesn't link them. We're going to go over that in a later lesson, but it makes it the same dimension. So that's just a little workflow thing right there. So I'm going to click on these two now and click on the 50 once more. And I'm actually going to delete this and create a couple more of the arcs. Let's say maybe one more hump. Okay, we're just about done. I'm going to make these tangent. I'm going to make these tangent. And the final one, all right, now I need to add, of course, a constraint to make these horizontal. The final one is just gonna, it's just going to be a line that kind of ends on the circle. So to rotate, very quickly, I use the middle button on my mouse. You can also use your arrow keys. You can see that. You can kind of rotate everything pretty effectively. So I'm going to click here, and I'm just going to kind of drag the line out, click on the circle, click on the line point, hit pierce, and you can click on the line and the arc and make them tangent. Okay, great. So that's the general shape I want for this example. I'm just going to come up here and save this handle. So I kind of am giving it away with the name. What we want to create is a sort of handle, like a handle type shape for a jump rope handle. I thought that would be kind of a fun example where you can really learn a lot. So we're going to end right here. We're going to click on boundary boss face, and so it's telling us we need 2 profiles. So what they mean by this is you need either a sketch or a part of a body, a solid body, or something that's going to allow you to create the actual boundary. So I'm going to come back and I'm going to see what the effect is right now. So that's going to be my plan. I'm going to click on these 2, and I'm going to see that Solidworks is able to create my first shape, which is with the 2 inputs I gave it, which is basically the barrel shape. And I'm going to try to see what happens when I click here. Oh, see, it doesn't like that. It doesn't want this what I want to call a contour line. It doesn't want it in the same direction. So let me try it in direction 2. So now it takes it, but this is not what I want the shape to look like. I want it to be flat on the bottom. So I'm going to come back and I'm going to go based off the information I got. And this is a way that I always find is the easiest to design. You want to open up your boundary boss. When you're making a boundary boss base, you have a lot of inputs, both in your direction 1 and direction 2. And your direction 1 is always the profiles that you're creating the shape with. I know that sounds a little vague. They're the sort of profiles that your shape is going to be made out of. That's your direction 1. Your direction 2 are all of the contour lines that go in a different direction. In this case, it's perpendicular. And those are the lines that are going to be influencing your direction 1. So we're going to continue with this example to better explain that. I know it can be definitely very confusing. I know I was confused when I first started a long while back. So I'm going to create my second profile, and seeing the result of our boundary boss, I know I need to create the bottom to be flat. And that's going to allow us to have these finger dips and these finger troughs and crests, I guess you could call them, for the handle. We're going to be able to kind of create a shape on the bottom that's not going to look all wonky throughout the whole thing. So we're going to come down here. We're going to create a line and just kind of drag it out. Click on the point. Click on the circle as we've been doing. Hit pierce. Okay. And now I can create the rest of the shape here. I'm going to create an arc. This arc, probably want to come up like this first. Make these 2 lines tangent. And from here, I can kind of create another shape that's going to start on that circle. So I'm going to drag it out first, click on the point, click on the circle, pierce, okay. And from here, I'm going to do the same thing I did in my first sketch. I'm going to come up here, make a line, bring it out, make it for construction, select the arc, select the line, make them tangent. And now I have a lot more control over the arc. So I want it to be something that at least looks kind of aesthetically pleasing and ergonomic, I'm going to kind of just drag these around and create an arc that sort of connects them. And as long as my arcs are tangent to each other, it's always going to be a continuous shape. That's definitely something to understand. I know I'm doing a lot of tangencies here. It's because it's necessary. When you're designing parts, especially injection molded parts, you really want to make sure that all your lines are tangent when they need to be, because if they're not, then you're going to run into problems both in manufacturing and in your part design. So I think I'm gonna leave it at this for now. I think we're at about a place that at least looks okay. I can still kind of drag it around as I don't have any real dimensions here yet. So now I'm gonna exit my sketch, and I'm gonna see the result of what this has done for my boundary boss base here. I'm going to click on it, and my direction 1 is in this direction. It's my 2 profiles, and my direction 2 are the describing lines, or the lines that influence the direction 1. So I'm going to click on this one. And so this little option box comes up. I know we've seen this before. Really, it's just asking me if this is an open loop or if it's a closed loop. So it's an open loop, and I'm just going to hit OK. So we have that kind of funky shape, but now if I click on this line and I hit OK, see, now it's giving me something that's completely different. So I'm going to hit OK, and you could actually see what it's done here. It's really interesting. I'm going to come up here to the middle, and you can actually see that the shaded with edges view is selected. So this really is the way that this part would look if it was designed. This is not something that could really be molded, but the way it is now, unless it was split in a certain way, but we're going to just about go ahead with this. I'm going to create 2 more profiles, and that's going to kind of smooth out some of the issues that we're seeing here. You could actually see, if you look closely, there are these folds, and those folds are really detrimental to manufacturing. It may not be possible to make this part because of that. So we're going to create 2 profiles that are going to change the shape of the sides, but they're also going to allow for manufacturability. So I'm just going to save this one more time. And I'm going to come back to, I'm actually going to right click and delete my boundary feature. And so my sketches are all still here. I'm going to create a sketch here on the top plane. Come up here, hit new sketch. And from here, like I mentioned, we're going to create 2 profiles. So I'm going to come up here and create a 3-point arc. So I'm going to just lay the arc down, and I'm going to select the point, select the circle, pierce. I'm going to create another line. It's going to be for construction. These are going to be tangent to each other. And so from here, I'm just going to add kind of a simple shape that just helps with describing the side. And by doing this, hopefully we're going to nullify some of those issues that we're facing in terms of those folds that we're seeing. So as usual, these are going to be tangent. This line is going to be tangent to this one. And I'm going to select this point again, select a circle, make them pierced. So from here, maybe I don't want to create the same line on the other side, when I can really just come in and create a line that goes from the origin out, making it construction, and then clicking on the 3 lines I made and mirroring entities. That's up here on the sketch tab. So click on mirror entities. Whoops, I might have made a mistake there. So here are my selected entities, and I want to mirror them. So I'm going to select them. I want to mirror them about this line. So I'm going to click on the line. And from here, it's not pierced on this side, but the circle lies on the center of the part and on the origin. So we can hopefully rest assured that our 2 lines really are mirrored and opposite each other in terms of the origin. So I'm going to come up to end my sketch, and I'm going to do a boundary boss base. I'm going to get the same warning. Here's my direction 1, here's my direction 2. It's going to create the barrel. Now let me select this profile. It's an open loop. This profile, it's an open loop. And so we're back to where we were in the beginning, except this time I'm going to see what happens when I click on this open loop and when I select the other open loop. So you can see we're running into some sorts of issues here with the surface. So the surface it's really not looking good, and that's because the this sort of surface that we've created is it's kind of like a pantyhose. Like that's the way that it was described to me back when I was learning. You can stretch it, you can kind of twist it, but you really don't want to get to a point where it's about to rip, because then your part isn't going to be designed well. So we need to try to change either our sketch or the actual way that it curves, that the part curves. So I can do that by selecting these curve influencers. And so when you do that, you get different results. You can actually come in and click normal to profile on the markers. And those markers all have different effects on the lines that they're connected to. So as you can see, this really hasn't fixed the problem. We're still experiencing the same issue. And this is really just something that happens in Solidworks. So you can see that the material is really stretched. This is really not a good situation to be in. And I believe it's partially because of the fact that this profile for the boundary surface, it's really only on one side. So there's not much balance, and that's causing the material to sort of stretch a lot more than it needs to. And this is really, like I mentioned, something that happens a lot in SolidWorks when you're designing a part. It's just something that needs to be worked out over time. So I'm going to first try to solve this problem by editing my sketch. Maybe I want to make this fillet much larger. So I'm talking about this fillet right here. If I make this fillet larger, maybe the material won't be so stretched around that area. So everything's going to update, and it looks a little bit better, but I think I'm still experiencing some issues. So I think I'm going to try one more time to change that and see if that has an effect. So I'm going to come back here, go to the sketch. And we're going to see if that changes anything. So when I do it in the middle, it looks like our problem is, for the most part, resolved itself. It looks like there's a lot more balance with the contours, not all coming down to one point. So it looks like the material is kind of stretching, and the more that it stretches to the middle, the better, or the more that it stretches toward its side is the better. So what I mean by that is if I click, if I show where the contours are, these finger points, they're stretching the material a lot in this area. So if I change my two curves to be closer to this point over here, it's going to, the material itself is going to stretch less and less. So that's kind of something that I've learned from the geometry of this part. So I'm going to show you what that means right now. I'm going to go back and I'm going to move these two lines even more towards the back of the part. So I'm going to move them here. Now let's see the result. So as you can see, it looks even better now. There's a lot more balance and a lot less stretching between the part and the, basically between the surface of the part. So from here, I'm going to add a couple ending features. I'm going to come up here, create a chamfer on this edge, and I'm going to bump up the dimension. It actually fails if I go too far in. So let's see if I can change the angle on the bottom. That may allow me to get a longer distance here. See, the angle that you do when you make a chamfer and the distance are commensurate with each other. So you can keep changing the angle, and you can make the this distance longer and longer depending on your part geometry. But there will come a point where it'll yield and it won't work. So I'm going to try to bump this up as much as I can. I'm going to change it to 24, hit OK. And so we're kind of hacking at this shape more and more. And so there are some problems here that I'm getting. So I'm having some inconsistencies. This is something to really look closely for in SolidWorks. You don't want to come to a point where you have these rifts in your part. So I'm going to just go ahead and delete that chamfer. And I'm going to just take a different approach and create a fillet. Now I could take more time and try to work out that feature, but for this example, we're just going to take it easy and just go with a fillet, both on the top and bottom. Anytime you overdo a feature that's a fillet or a chamfer, you're going to experience some sort of rift or issue in your parts. So I'm going to try to keep it simple here. I could actually come up to the top middle and click on shaded, and that's going to show my part geometry a little bit better. So you can kind of see what it looks like. I'm actually going to come up here and just kind of change this back geometry a little bit, try to make it look a little bit better. So it looks like the material is buckling a little bit in the back. That's because it's not really possible to stretch the material in the way that I want to based on the lines that I'm creating. So I need to sort of play it safe and not stretch at the material so much. So I need to make this curve a little bit larger and broader. Okay, so that looks a little bit better. So from here, I'm going to just create a hole at the top. That's where the string would go. So we could see we have our finger kind of handle part of it, and we also have this back section for the hand. And so from here, what I'm going to do is I'm going to create the line that comes out of this handle. And so what we've created here is kind of like a jump rope handle. So I'm going to create a sketch, I'm going to use that as reference, so I'm going to start a new sketch on the right plane, and I'm going to drag out a spline. So let me just create a couple points here, and I'm not going to create this in the part. I'm just using the part as reference. So just going to come around here in a sort of really random shape and just kind of end it here, right click select. So from here I have my line, and I'm going to exit out of the sketch, and so I'm gonna right click on the line, or actually I don't even need to right click, I can just click on it and hit Control C to copy the line, and I'm going to come up here and go to a new part, go into a new part, and on the right plane start a new sketch and paste the line that you put down. I'm just going to come down here, change this to inch pounds. So where were we? We were on the right plane, start a sketch, and here's our spline, and I'm going to paste this right here on the origin, as we like to do. And from here I'm going to create a sketch on the front plane, which is attached to the origin. So start a sketch and just simply create a circle right there on the origin. I'm going to make it an 1/8 inch in diameter. So from here I can just do a sweep, a simple sweep. I'm actually going to bump this up a little bit more, 0.2. And I'm going to exit and go to sweep, click on your line, and your sweep is created for the jump rope line. So I'm going to save this as line, just for line, and I can go back and I can create now a new assembly. So the first thing that we're going to bring in this assembly is the handle. Highlight handle and just hit OK. That's going to automatically place my handle on the origin. Now I can actually right click and edit the part while I'm in the assembly if I really want to. And I can just click on this line and get rid of it, since we were really just using it for reference. And if we go back, I can come up and insert another component, and this next component is going to be the line. So I'm going to drag that in, and I'm going to come up here to mate, and I'm going to click on this point, and I'm going to click on the point of the top surface here. Now we don't have a point that we can use here at the top, so we're going to create one quickly on the top of this part. I'm going to edit the part in the assembly by clicking on the handle, right click, edit part. We're now editing the part in the assembly. Now we know how to edit parts in the part itself, but when you edit it in the assembly, it kind of allows you to see your whole assembly and work in a part while looking at all the other parts that affect it. So I'm going to click on this flat surface and create a sketch, because you can create a sketch on any flat surface in Solidworks, and just create a circle here. And I'm going to make this 0.2 inches in diameter, and I'm going to cut down into it. For this example, I'm just going to drag it in, make a cut, and exit. And now I can attempt to mate these two circles. So I'm going to select this circle, and I'm going to select this circle, and my mate is successful, but it's in the wrong direction. See that? I want it to be flipped in the other direction. So I'm going to click here, mate alignment. If I click on that, all of a sudden it reverses its direction. So it was the correct mate, but the wrong direction. So now I can hit OK. And now I want to go and insert a third component. Click on handle and drag it out this time. And we're just going to place it there. We're going to do the same thing. I'm going to click on my line, right click, and I'm going to hit mate. And I'm going to click on this icon. It's called lock. This is one of our mates for the assembly. When you hit lock, when you click on it, it locks the line in place so it can't move. And so that's going to be very helpful. I just need to select it here. That's going to be very helpful because by locking it in place, we can stop it from moving around and kind of annoying us, messing up our flow here. So I'm going to mate this actually to our first part that we made. Oops, delete that. So the lock is between this part and this part. All right, that's fine. So if I try to drag it, it's not going to move. If I try to click on the part and move it around, it's not going to go anywhere. I'm just going to do the same mate that we did. So click on mate, click on the circle, click on this other circle, and now they're concentric. Just going to drag that up for now. And there you have it.